How is it possible that someone can be truly happy?
You was looking for happiness?
Yes.
Yeah. In fact, every single one look for happiness. Not only that, but every single movement you make in this life is looking after happiness. But in order to go into the subject, it's important, first of all, not only to analyze how to achieve happiness or how to reach a state of happiness, but first of all, we should understand what happiness is. No? It's logic, because if you look for something and you make efforts to achieve something, it's essential to know what is that something. Everybody looks for happiness all their life, but still is a subject of many generations of the best thinkers of humanity to try to define what happiness is. For Immanuel Kant, happiness is a duty. For Sigmund Freud, is an utopia. Something that is not possible as long as you're in contact with the world, because the world brings you a lot of disturbing experiences. For Confucius, was an issue of harmony between human beings. For Lao Tzu, happiness is an issue, is related to nature as our model, or to harmonize with nature. Dictionaries will give you different, very simplistic definitions. That happiness is more or less a state of comfortable sensations. Very, very confused. So what happiness is? First of all, we have to say that as in Hebrew we say, En chacham keba'al nisayon. The only one who really know what happiness is those who are happy. Those are the only one who can really understand what happiness is. Why so? Why from one hand we are all after happiness, but what is the reason that it's so difficult to arrive to a consensus where we all agree what happiness is? The reason is that happiness is not an objective experience, but is a subjective one. That means that our definition of happiness will not be so much related to the object, but will be totally related to the individual who look after it. It's totally subjective. In other words, happiness for you will be totally related to the level of consciousness where you are, or your level of evolution, internal evolution. According to that, will be your own concept of happiness. It is clear? What is happiness for one person cannot be happiness for other. And then we need to do some kind of a order. And that is the reason that in different languages we have different words for happiness according to the different levels of consciousness. For the first level, let's say, we cannot talk about happiness, we can talk about pleasure. We talk about the first level because it's people that are very, very identified only with the body or the body-mind complex. Very basic people, very fundamental, essential, elemental level. People that are almost in between the instinct and begin to awake to the level of the intellect, but still is instinct. For those people, the only thing that exists is the body, nothing else. And of course, somebody like that will look for happiness, but only in the level of the senses. Means for a person like that, happiness will be sensual pleasure or satisfaction of the senses. The problem is that you can find pleasure, you can satisfy the senses, all your physical needs, but continue to look for happiness. In society was created an industry of pleasure through coffee, cigarettes, alcohol, discotheques, TV, media, games, fashion, food, through everywhere. This industry lying on people and succeed to convince generations that pleasure is happiness. And most of the mass of people believe it. If you see, not many years ago, you can see advertise of cigarettes with smile people, happy people, or Coca-Cola, Nescafe, whatever, all kind of poison, but with people that give you the subconscious message that they are happy. And all these substances will make them and will make you happy. But this is only pleasure, sensual pleasure. The industry wants you to buy and consume. And the industry promises as much as you consume, you will be happy. in the next shopping, you will be happy. And mass of people become totally hypnotized, brainwashed. Buying, consuming. Cars, everything, even drugs. But I have to tell you something. The pleasure, instead of be happiness, inside has a lot of suffering and pain. You see people drinking whiskey, cognac, martini. They have pleasure, but those people are not really happy. If you go more in that and more, there is alcoholism, drug addiction, the same thing. All kind of addictions, addictions to, even to shopping. There is an addiction today. These are new disease, new psychological disease, but with a lot of pleasure, those people suffer. The person who wants to stop to smoke, with every cigarette he suffers, but he has the pleasure. All kind of addictions. The person who is attached to something or to somebody, do you think the person is happy? Can a slave be happy? Because pleasure is slavery. Pleasure is physiological happiness. Because it's based only into satisfy physiological needs in some way or other. And it's so superficial. It's related to the other, related to the object, is related to the other person, is related to something in the surface. Because make your life superficial. As much as you cultivate and allow these desires for pleasure, you become more divided. You feel broken. You feel like divided. Conflict in you. You arise more and more conflicts. Because you have so many desires that you cannot fulfill, and sometimes these desires are in conflict one with the other. You want health, but you want to smoke cigarettes. You want to be skinny, but you want to eat chocolates. You want money, but you want free time in order to enjoy something else, to be with your family. And all these conflicts make you like a chariot with many horses, but every horse pulled to a different direction. And you feel the internal conflict. And not only internal, because millions and millions and millions of people have desires too. And the same kind of desires that arise competition and conflict between human beings. And many of the violence and conflicts all over the world arise from this. See the Black Friday. You have seen all these people look like bulls in everyone with his own desires, and they collapse one with the other. No, the desires collapse one with the other, and that is how the world looks. The pleasure is not real happiness, but a kind of relief. It's an escape, nothing else. It's escape. Every person who looks for pleasure escape from solitude. People who look for pleasure cannot love. How can you love? How can you love when you want the other as a means for pleasure? You have children and you feel you love them. But why you love them? Because when you hug them, you feel such a pleasure. So the child, the poor child, become only a tool, a mean for my pleasure. I use it. I love my couple because when I have this person with me, I am so attached because I don't feel alone. How can I love somebody when for me that person is no more than a means to escape from my solitude? I feel such a pleasure when somebody say, I love you, and hug me. Such a pleasure. How I can love that person? When I make him a means, nothing else, I utilize him or her in order to have this pleasure. I go in the world and utilize people, exploit people. Sexual pleasure. I become an abuser. Doesn't matter, man or woman. Is pleasure what I want? So I use. And human beings, a human being is never a mean. A human being is alive. It's never a mean, it's a goal in itself. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, whenever you see me come in this form, you ignore me. You have to respect the human form as because the divine is there. That is the reason in India we say namaste, not we say hello, hi to the person, to Peter, to Mary, no. We say namaste because there, as Paramatma, there is a temple of the divine. I respect you. Yes? So try to think what this respectful attitude to life, to existence, and to the source, the divine source of this world, to utilize a human being as a mean for something else. And you miss the person. You cannot really know the person because your interest is not in that person. That is the reason sometimes, if you pay attention, you don't know your couple really. You don't really know your father, your mother, your neighbor, your boss, your friends. You know a little, but really, really, really know. And if we pay attention, many of us sometimes don't really know anybody. And if we put really attention, maybe we don't know even ourselves because we are not attentive. We are not really care about to know the other. We use everything in life, everything as a mean to something else to achieve that happiness, that goal that is happiness. But it's pleasure. It's only an escape. It's only a relief from our solitude. That pleasure is only a relief of our sadness, of our suffering. so many problems in life. It's a relief from our pain. That is pleasure. When we develop a little more, it's not that we are enlightened, but develop a little more in this. Life is evolution, development. We grow a little more. First, we have pleasure. When we develop a little more, I don't say we are enlightened, but we are like not on the first level that we identify only with the body. We begin to awake to our mental level. Then we look for joy. Joy is the same like pleasure, but it's not so physiological. It's psychological. It's a little more elevated. When we identify ourselves more with the mind, we develop a little, and then we enjoy with music, for example. Music make us feel more complete, harmonize. We enjoy with poems. The poems touch my heart. I feel that emotions. I become more emotional. I become more romantic. Relation is not only about sex anymore. It's not only about pleasure. A relation is more about romantic emotions. Try to understand the difference, because the pleasure is a relief, is an escape, but the joy enriches me. I feel more rich. Dancing. I forget myself in dancing. I forget myself when I see a paint and enjoy an evening. I enjoy the sunset and enjoy the flowers, and I can appreciate the trees. I can enjoy a person. I can appreciate the other. More romantic relation. I become attached with emotions, not only like pleasure, not only sex, emotions. I can appreciate the company of the other. That is a little more elevated. It's not so different. It's not the real thing. Let's say, if pleasure is instinct, joy is mental, is psychological. It's beautiful. It's another step on the path. You can make a beautiful relation with your family, with your children, with your husband. This love forever, romantic, beautiful, exemplary family, beautiful family, nice relation with friends, neighbors, the country, love nature, It's very, very civilized. Then you have another level, that is happiness. Happiness is spiritual. Happiness comes from meditation. Happiness don't come anymore from the other, but is more in your relation with the divine. Happiness is from the soul. Come from devotion. Happiness is a state of being that is, you enjoy the loneliness, you enjoy the silence. Then silence becomes a melody. You can feel really happy of your relation with life, with existence, with the divine, every single moment. It's totally freedom, not anymore slavery to any object or to any person in particular. This comes out of your soul. Happiness is spiritual, it's from the soul. A spiritual person usually is happy. Beautiful, nectarious spiritual states of devotion, contemplation, etc. Nectarious is the word. Nectar because it's a happiness that doesn't come from this world, like the nectar comes from the demigods, you know. Usually in India we talk about nectar, he comes from the devas, something that comes from other world. That means it's not a happiness that is mundane. Happiness you can find only in meditation. Your presence becomes happiness, love. And the last one, that is the most difficult to talk about. In Vedanta, the other day we learned that the divine, the truth, consciousness has a name, Satchidananda, no? Ananda is what we talk about. Ananda is bliss. It's not spiritual in the sense that it's not happiness. Because in happiness, still there is somebody happy. Savikalpa. Still there is somebody who is devotee and is happy. Ananda is your real nature, is the essence of what you really are. But when you really are, what you think you are is not there anymore. It's only an infinite void, space. Nothingness that is bliss. absolute, because it's not a like matras parashastu kaunteya. Don't have a distress. It's not a happiness. It's not a pleasure that have pain. It's not a joy that there is sadness. It's absolute. It's absolute. It's not dual. Pleasure, joy, and happiness you can experience. You can experience. You can have it or not. They come and they can go. Bliss is more about to be something. Is what you are. You are bliss. And because you are bliss, because in some way you feel that in some place you are bliss, you look for it. When you think you are a body, you look for it in the pleasure. When you develop and you think you're a mind, you look for it in a joy. When you are more spiritual, you look for it in God. Bliss is when you stop to look for it. Bliss, there is no way to explain it. It's more like when a child, it's the most near example I saw is when I saw many years ago a mother gave to a small child a surprise, a candy, and the child put it in his mouth, and the mother said, "It's tasteful?" And the child only smiled, and in his eyes he said, "Yes, but only he can know how tasteful it is. No words to explain it." Bliss happens when you disappear as a candy in this existence enjoying you. Is disappearing. Because if I look for pleasure, I cannot be happy. If I look for happiness, no joy. So as long as I don't renounce, as long as I don't renounce to pleasure, I cannot enjoy. You need to understand that usually the main obstacle to enjoy are you are looking for pleasure. And the main obstacles for happiness is your searching of pleasure and joy. And as long as you look for pleasure, joy, and happiness, it's absolutely impossible to touch Ananda or bliss. So make an order. somebody who is happy, it's very difficult to experience bliss because he is so happy, he is there. The happy one is there. And how to make disappear the happy one is more difficult. When the ego suffers, he wants to go. He wants to disappear. He wants to kill himself. It's more easy. Kill yourself spiritually. But when the ego is happy, pleasure, joy, happiness, why he will go?